Thank you. It's wonderful to see all of you. It's great to be part of this webinar on building resilient communities, practicing intangible cultural heritage. I also would like, together with you, to welcome members of the audience today. I think at the outset it's quite clear that this COVID-19 has created an unprecedented disruption in all areas of life and almost all sectors, including, and that's why we're together today, in the arts. And the impact on livelihoods related to cultural heritage has been extraordinary. Also, the craft sector in particular, which is, as we all know, one of the largest employment sectors in India after agriculture, with, I believe, an estimated 10 million plus artisans and allied workers, has been severely hit. And it's particularly important to underline this aspect because the sector is an important source of livelihood in rural areas and for a large number of women. The incomes of performing artists, including traditional and folk artists, has been hugely impacted as well. And again, I want to underline the situation of women artisans who probably find themselves in the most vulnerable situation.
Let me tell you, Eric Falt, who just spoke right now, and Eric is the head of UNESCO South Asia Director, UNESCO New Delhi, and he has joined us from Paris, and he just gave the introductory and welcome note for all of you. And now we first move to the first speaker. So I will go to Shreya. Ms. Shreya Guha, she heads the Art, Culture and Tourism in Government of Rajasthan.
To begin with, I'd like to congratulate UNESCO for this wonderful initiative that they've taken of introducing a special program called ResiliArt. And this webinar is being conducted as a part of that. So congratulations to all of you for organizing this. And I think it's a very topical subject and perhaps something which maybe has not been on the table so far because we've been focusing on more live issues like dealing with the health scenario or maybe dealing with the economic fallout of the lockdown. And in India in particular, which I guess the other countries have not been facing, is a huge migrant labor problem that we've been handling. Tourism is an integral part of the economy. In fact, it is the largest generator of livelihoods in the state. So therefore, we've been, as a department, a part of the entire process of planning for restarting the economy and also suggesting ways in which we can revive the sector. But cultural tourism, the intangible cultural heritage of the state is intrinsically linked towards tourism because that really forms the main product that our tourism sector showcases. The folk artists, the performers, the craftsmen, especially in the desert belt of the state, are also very closely linked to tourism. And that is another sector which has got very badly affected by this entire process. In fact, I would say that we were perhaps the first industry to get affected by the lockdown, even before the lockdown actually started. But then we realized that the next step would be that we didn't really have a planned safety net for our artists or for our craftsmen. And the first step that we did was to provide some kind of relief in starting a scheme. In fact, the lockdown started here on about 19th of March, and within a week we had a scheme in place which, while honoring the latent talent of the performer and the fact that the performer would not want any dole, and the performer takes pride in his talent and would like to put out his talent and showcase it, even though he is not able to do it in a physical form. So we asked them to record their performances at home and send them to us. We created a dedicated YouTube channel for them, and we were able to showcase these folk artists, and we paid them for that. We need to have a firm policy and a scheme in place which will ensure that if this happens again, then we need to have a safety net for these people, which will immediately kick in. I'd also like to give you some good news that on the 1st of June, we were the first state which decided to open up our monuments, because we felt that the time was right as the lockdown was easing and people were wanting to come and go somewhere and get back to normal life. So the good news is that the day we opened up, it's been the 5th day now, and we opened just for 2 hours with very strict hygiene protocols in place, and we already have 3,000 plus footfalls. There is hope, because this entire period of lockdown we've been surviving in hope, and Rajasthan Tourism and Rajasthan Art and Culture Department has tried to instill as much positivity as we can. We've been sending out messages. We started a scheme called Rajasthan from Home, where we put out all our virtual tours, so people who could not travel, who could not visit, could not see our cultural heritage were able to do so through digital means and through social media.
And now I request our second speaker, Johannes Therur, from Radio Berlin, as well as he's the Secretary World Music Chart Europe, and he has joined us from Berlin. How the world music people are doing, how the Germans are handling, and what the common man is talking about, what is the impact on the resilient community.
I have a little special perspective here, as the local art or intentional cultural heritage is, for me, is international art. Basically, all the festivals have been don't take place. Huge festivals where a lot of artists from all over the world would have performed. Their tour bookings kind of vanished in minutes. We won't have stages or concerts or party events like before for a very long time. We have some concerts, it looks strange, where in theaters you find people sitting, one person surrounded by 6 empty seats or something. We have those home concerts, the radio is supporting it in different European countries in a similar way like what we heard from Rajasthan. The government gave out something like a monthly pay just to anybody. So you kind of apply for it, say, I'm an artist, I'm self-employed, I'm short in money, and you got 5,000 euro in your account. That has been abused also, but still the general opinion is that was a smart move. And there's a lot of financial support, and just recently the government says that they want to support culture with 1 billion. That is, of course, that is something that everybody feels good about.
Okay, now I will move to Dr. Sunil Chitrakar. Sunil is from Nepal. His organization, Mahaguti, is very well known. He himself is a Thangka painter, as well as he is the Vice President of the Nepal Craft Association, also Fair Trade Forum. So, welcome, Sunil.
When everything is going well, we always cherish our art, craft, everything. When this pandemic happens, these are the artisans who suffer the most. The craft-related industries and businesses started facing the decline of orders, slashing of order, canceling, and that immediately resulted to the people who are working in those craft industries. Another thing is this emotional health of the artisans and artists, because they did not see their future secure, and the whole livelihood depends upon their ability to perform and ability to sell their art and crafts. When it stops, they don't see their future. So that also affecting their the emotional health as well. These artists have never been paid enough, so that they have been working for every day. They don't have a saving. Right? So we also now have to think, after the post-COVID, how we as a community can raise awareness on this wage earning of this artisan, because they are exploited somehow. The traders may have, benefited, but many artisans have not gained that way, so that they have savings. So that is also very much effective. And here in Nepalese case, many of this traditional art is based on caste, which again is discriminatory. They are poor because they were never paid, and they are discriminated. The working capital becoming the biggest challenge, the cash flow becoming the biggest challenge. They cannot survive because they don't have the cash. To some extent, local communities somehow come up with programs to distribute food.
Now I request we go to Shamin.
Till the winter, spring, and summer, these 3 months is our before Boishak in Bangla calendar, and a lot of events happen as per Bangladesh Small and Cotton Industries Corporation census. In this time, 375 folk events happen all over the Bangladesh. In this season, especially winter, spring, a lot of production happen because of Boishak events, and also this time our Eid was in, like Muslim festival, Eid in May. So more than 60% all over the turnover happen in these two seasons. If you see the artisan level, they are stuck. At the same time, those who do the trading and also those who buy from artisan and sell in a urban area, they are also stuck. So what happened? Government tried to give them some kind of, they said, incentive, but it's not incentive. It is loan in terms of if they want to take money, they have to take from bank and they have to give interest, which is 4.5%. Millions of people lived unnoticed at the bottom of the pyramid in thousands of villages, providing unique services as a part of their families' inherited skills and caste occupation. This includes potter, cobbler, metal smith, carpenters, basket weavers, rope makers, broom makers, weavers, gamcha. Lot of events like pitas, nokshikaras, huge. If you see, the huge chunk of people are completely at home. Our people, those who are engaged, especially arts and crafts and music, they already making their own group, and they try to collect money and say, the giving support to the musicians or any craft artisans, craft people. It's like a one packet of things for 1 month. We export craft, but our local market is really huge for our craft, but we couldn't sell. The artisan couldn't sell with the the folk fairs happening in the different village. Even the poor people makes their product for poor people, like gamcha. It's not selling. So the huge gamcha weavers they are also poor. They produce that kind of piece of fabric which is for the poor people. That is not that is got stuck.
At banglanatak.com, we have been working with the artist communities for almost 20 years. Let me give you a little brief and perspective of the scenario here from the practitioner's point of view, from the community, which may be good, and then I go to Gopi. If you look at handicraft and performing art, basically, which is dependent on, there are three types of markets. One is which is dependent on fairs, festivals, and tourism. And that's usually between September and March. So as COVID came around holy time, that, it's basically 10th of March, the little bit of things started, government went down for lockdown, but here the holy were cancelled in many places. So the impact started from there. But till beginning of March, it actually was smooth. And so I will say from March to say June, this is not the peak time here in this part of the world as far as this is concerned. So that way, that particular market will be around 10% reduction, not more than that. There is a second interesting market, which is basically a market, local market, but that's very important for the handicraft as well as for the performing artist, especially baul, raibeshe, chau. These are summer performances. And whenever chau performances, chau mask comes in. And so that's why that market got completely smashed. So their market is almost dead by 60-70%. As far as the governments here in West Bengal, and I think few other state governments has a good policy of paying 1,000 per month. It's called Lok Prashar Prakalpa, LPP, to each rural artist in performing and visual art. It is not really, I mean, financial is a big thing, but more than that, it is the insecurity. What next? When it will open? What I'm going to do? This insecurity and uncertainty is the killer. I think that's where our way forward needs to be thought of.
Interestingly, for us, even before COVID-19, organizations like ours, the Blue Yonder, we were in trouble. And this was because of various natural disasters related to climate crisis. You know, the need for the discussions about resilience actually started long way back. We have faced tsunami in 2006, 2009 we had Cyclone Naila, then 2015 unfortunately the Nepal earthquake, even if it's unrelated to climate crisis. Then in Chennai, South India, we had floods, and Kerala unfortunately went through two floods, you know, one of those once in 100-year kind of floods, where the first flood, the government was actually seeking $5 billion to rebuild a better Kerala. You know, so this crisis was always at our door, and we were figuring out what do we do. But at the same time, you know, the crisis also brought in a lot of potential of the communities about how they come together, how they manage all this crisis. And what we did around those times was to repurpose our tourism tool. You know, tourism business. How do we repurpose the business in such a way that we can actually respond to development challenges like most of the social entrepreneurs do? But we fine-tune it to such extent that a lot of our tools available, including our network with foreign partners or community partners within India, we converted, or rather I would say co-created and transformed all these in such a way that we could bring in humanitarian you know, assistance during crisis. Tourism industry, the development sector and the humanitarian sector can, you know, marry so that we can have a resilient destination. The approach towards the problem was not about livelihood. We were not even thinking about livelihood. The whole process and the purpose of this whole exercise that we did in the past few months was about to make sure that no one goes hungry. And we were lucky to be based out of Kerala because a very proactive, welfare-oriented state government ensured that every family, whether you are rich or poor or middle class, or whether you were a guest worker or a migrant laborer living in Kerala, you were provided food. You know, 32 kilograms of rice and provisions were given to all these people. Our festivals, summer festivals, especially the post-harvest festival, which used to be, you know, it used to be very well known for a lot of cultural activities. That's where a lot of money used to come. Almost 50% of the annual turnover used to come from these kind of local festivals. And festivals were completely stopped because of the lockdown. So no income came from that. The domestic tourism season starting in March till, you know, now going over to the monsoon, it's all affected. Social entrepreneurs like us, this is the time for us to look into this crisis as an opportunity to build a network and not work as islands of excellence. You know, it's time that we bring together our knowledge, build it up on a common platform and work together.
So now I go back to our first speaker, Shreya.
Since events have got cancelled across the world, across the country, so most of them don't have their usual the calendar that they're used to every year. They can't follow that. So therefore, what we've tried to do is try and create as many digital events and digital concerts as possible. So till now, because the lockdown was on, people were recording at home and we were trying to put those recordings together and have concerts. We've done 2 concerts which have gone down very well. We've got a lot of good feedback on that. But now with the lockdown eased in India, we are trying to do perhaps some performances where people will be able to get together, or a small group can get together at a destination and do a concert. There may not be an audience in a physical form, but it could be, you know, streamed or people could, I mean, it could be a drive-in kind of situation. So we're looking at various options of doing that. And Sunil was also mentioning about artists in Nepal. What we did is that we have a very thriving network of artists in Rajasthan. Right at the beginning, because they really didn't know, all their exhibitions got cancelled. So we did this 15-day camp, an art camp from home. So everybody for 15 days just painted at home, did whatever they felt like doing, and constantly kept uploading the progress of what they were doing. So they would do small video clips and people could see them at work. People could see them halfway through their work, which normally maybe people are not able to see. And then eventually we said we will do a public auction of that and contribute that fund to the relief fund for COVID. And then the question that we are all, thinking of is, what is the way forward? What happens next? How far does this go on? In my assessment of the situation is that we need to go digital as much as possible, because there is no guarantee that the situation is going to stabilize. Amazingly, our wildlife centers, for example, we're getting a lot of calls and people want to go and visit. So I think there is also a trend for having open air events. So we've got to now stop thinking of maybe having all events in a theater or an auditorium kind of concept. We may have to go out and be open.
Does government of Rajasthan have any plan of introducing any scheme for the artists, traditional artists, communities, a monthly scheme, any support of both for handicraft as well as for performing art?
See, as I mentioned, when we started, we didn't have any scheme of any sort at all. There was a scheme which for many years earlier we had, but that was not especially for folk artists. Right. That is, we had for general artists, if anybody is in distress, so that we have something called the Sangeet Natak Academy, which is the Academy of Performing Arts. So they would help their members or people who were associated with them. So we had nothing for folk artists, we had nothing for performers. And in this distress situation, we started this scheme, which I had mentioned earlier. And that scheme has now been discontinued because, the lockdown, we had said we'd do it for the lockdown period. But what we realize is that now we have to do a registration of all these artists. The craftsmen are already registered, but the folk artists are not. And especially the worst sufferers have been the street performers, like the puppeteers. They had nowhere to go. And so we need to do some kind of registration of them, have a record, and also have a scheme which will kick into place the minute something like this happens again, so that the time that was lost in trying to plan and come up with a scheme need not be there.
So, Johannes, if you like to comment or give your thoughts, deepen your thoughts.
Well, it's very interesting. A lot of online activities and digital activities may help a lot, but for rural artists, I'm not quite sure. I had the opportunity to visit some of the villages where Art for Life by banglanatak is happening, and that was not the kind of environment where everybody is online. And their skills to put up a website or maybe to show what they can would immediately be put in the cage of the abilities and skills of someone who can run the internet. So that emancipation process, which was so obvious and really beautiful, it was an overwhelming experience, fantastic, that would kind of go away at least partly. I can imagine that some things are more valuable than others, like, for example, education, or trying to increase skills, exchange opinions. This keeps your mind going in the artist field.
Thanks, Johannes, for your comment. I go to Sunil, Nepal.
Because of the COVID, none of the festivals happen in Kathmandu Valley. Those festivals also associated with a part of living, their identity, and also hold a lot of other art and craft are related with that festivity. And because that festivals did not occur, so that also affected their entire social life as well. And those festivals cannot be, shown in any digital platform because it happens physically. For example, carrying the chariot and taking around the city, building the chariot, those things which need physical participation. In fact, this COVID situation is worse than the effect of earthquake. After the earthquake, what we did is we resumed all the festivities despite the difficulties, because we knew that this art, this festivity will help people come back from this pain. But because of this lockdown, because of this the particular situation, we were not able to perform anything.
Sunil, and next I'll go to Shamin. But before that, let me ask both of you, are you facing anything like distress selling? Like, because whenever the rural traditional handicraft artists, whenever they make something, they have to sell. Now
Yep.
it's so much of stock because the third order got cancelled.
Yep.
So much of stock, uncertainty. Are you seeing that people are selling their products in distress? 7,000 products is getting sold at 3,000.
I think we
Uh,
haven't got any formal record of those things, but definitely that will be the case. At this moment, here we have a strict lockdown, so there is not a movement of people. So that is why we have not seen that one. There might be some cases, but we don't see that in public. So, but I have feared that that may happen after this lockdown is over.
our Jamdani weavers have a two different set. Those who are pre-weaver, they are one community, and weaver is in one community. Our pre-weaver is very much affected. So we are supporting them as if giving them food. But Jamdani weavers, what you mentioned, that they are dropped down the price. It's less than, say, 10,000 worth of taka sari, they are selling 4,000 or 3,000 and a half. And that some kind of people, they are investing there to sell later, say 1 year later. That is something like their kind of business.
It's very interesting what we have discussed. Distress selling, we need to be very, very careful, watchful in the communities. Secondly, this probably is an ideal time for engaging, because as I mentioned, that's the uncertainty. So maybe some sort of training, and gurus, let them train the children, the transmission of the knowledge. I think this is an ideal time. So this is one way that we can engage. We can also ensure some payment to them. And thirdly, of course, the virtual and other things that we are discussing. And I go to our last speaker, Gopi, who has really developed the resilient communities. I know in his first introductory remark, he didn't talk about it, but I will request you to talk about your flood situation and how we converted all the beautiful dolls. That's the story I think you should also share. We definitely have to learn from you.
That flood came, especially when we were just about to open the market for Onam festival. It's one of the largest festivals in Kerala. So every unit, they were ready with stock. Normally about 75% of their income used to come around this time, 75% of the income. So this was all underwater. Every single stock was underwater because they were not expecting a flood overnight. And then when we went and spoke to the secretaries of the various units, and we asked them, so what is it that we are planning to do? And then they said, we don't know all the stock. These are all stinging, so we want to, we will probably set fire to it, because most of them didn't have insurance. And those people who had insurance, they were waiting for the government machinery to activate. So another friend of mine and colleague, Lakshmi, and I, what we did was we went and picked up some saris, about 6-meter long saris, and then converted those, created some little dolls called Chekuti. In Malayalam, it means a child that came out of the mud, especially from the flood. And then from one sari, which used to roughly cost about 1,200 to 1,800 rupees, we created 250 to 300 small dolls, very small dolls, roughly about 6 square inches, 6 square centimeters circle. And then we priced it at 25 rupees, which is kind of affordable for a lot of people. And then we crowdsourced and put it online. And the result was that this little doll helped a sari of 1,200, which was now worthless because no one is going to use it because it was always underwater, it was stinging, it looked dirty. So we created this little doll telling the story that it has stains, it is not clean, but it has stains, and it kind of reflects who we are and what we were going through as well. So people could connect to that, and they wanted to support these weavers. And even though the minimum price was 25, people were willing to pay 100,000 rupees sometimes for one doll. And in 120 days, this whole community-driven initiative raised 120,000 US dollar. And the result of that is this doll became a beacon of resilience. It represented every Malayali, every person in Kerala, everyone who had to go through the hardship. At the same time, clearly providing an opportunity to convince people that crisis need not end everything. Crisis could be an opportunity for us to overcome and rebuild in a much sustainable way.
I'll request Junie. You are here listening to everything. If you can also share some of your comments.
Yes, thank you very much, Amitabha, and then all the panelists for sharing your valuable experience and comments and then suggestion. From UNESCO side, first of all, I think we very much would like to congratulate the government of Rajasthan, and of course, I'm sure that the other state government, they are also taking actions. But since we have the Rajasthan in the panel today, it is definitely for us is one of the basic insurance from the government to provide the support. The support initiative the Mrs. Shreya mentioned, we believe is not only just a material one. Along with this support, the moral support goes together. So this is very important because they feel that government are taking care of them. So I wish that this kind of even small initiative, even small support should be recommended to all the state government in India if possible. And the second comment I would like to share with you is that it's the digital use of regulation. And I believe this the digital use for any purpose, even for selling, even for performance, is being discussed everywhere. What is important here, if we need regulations, because without regulation, as we discussed, sometimes benefit can go, to those who are not really the relevant or stakeholders. We now know India, especially we also had these typhoons and cyclones. We will always have natural catastrophe, and so it is a very good occasion to build resilience. And of course, we hope that this webinar will definitely contribute to come out with a certain resilience, and also not just talking, but of course we have to work out and then put together our ideas to have some kind of regulation and supporting concrete supporting scheme from various governments, both from central level and then state level.
I will just request all of you, all the speakers, do you have any more comment that you want to make it? Maybe 10 seconds? Anything?
I want to make a comment like what I have seen that our village level, the midwives, the daima in Bangla we said, the midwives playing a very good role, especially the herbal medicine and giving them and having the immune system. So that I want to mention that because that is part of our community-based tourism issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamim. Sunil, you want to speak?
Yep. Yep. I think one thing we all need to see is building institutional capacity in the respective countries, so that the next pandemic or next crisis, this institution can facilitates the artisans. In Nepal's case, we have very limited institution that can support the artisan, except its private sector networks.
I think to evaluate the measures you are taking and give that information to a general public, that is something very valuable. This is the first time we have this situation, and maybe we can learn and share experience. And one thing which we understand here now these days is it's extremely important to keep the infrastructure alive that is around artists. Those traders, technicians, and all these people, they also need some attention. Otherwise, if they get lost, the whole communication system breaks.
Yes. Shreya?
Yeah, what I wanted to conclude by saying was that as government, we've largely been doing firefighting and crisis management in the last 2-3 months. But this has been a learning experience for all of us in government as well. And now we need to take stock of what is it that need to be the further policy interventions in place and ensure that whatever was lacking is all the systems are put in place. So should there be another situation like this, God forbid, then we should be better prepared to handle it than we were at this time. So I think, government of course, but I guess across all the stakeholders, for us, this is an opportunity to think ahead, think forward, and try and come up with as many innovative solutions as possible.
Thank you. I must mention here, when we were, I was there I'm very lucky that I was part of the MDG evaluation team. And in MDG, actually the MDG to SDG, one major change is in MDG, everybody thought 100% responsibilities of government. In SDG, it is government and entrepreneurs. I wish our governments, please extend your hand also to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs will love to join you in fighting this, innovating. This is a very, very important message because entrepreneurs, they are different level of entrepreneurs and they will be able to join and also co-create a new way forward. And that we will be able to take care of the artists because we are aware of the artists' concerns. Because firstly, uncertainty. Secondly, how to run the family. Somebody in Rajasthan desert has 7 children, only the ration will not work because I have never seen in Bengal or Bihar, but there are caste musicians. Their only thing is music, Langa, Mangniyar, Mir. These are very important and they have one patron, Jajman. So these are different challenges. So our Baul, Fakir, Bhavaiya, they face another challenge, but it's not really the challenge because here judgmans are not the richest of the rich. Ordinary people are judgmans. How come they will help these people? So this patronization which is going on, so that means we need to work out a route for them. So that's why the training, and it is not only the anudan or the dole, it is rather the building the capacity and creating a way forward. I think here it is a wonderful, I thank all of you for joining us, that it is a true partnership that can help us in creating the new forward under the leadership of government, UN agencies, but we, the small entrepreneurs and the civil society, will love to join in the new fight.